Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the interview. Today, I have a fan favorite. I actually might be one of the first people I ever talked to when I started doing this interview roundabout. But I think now is the perfect time to have him back. Mr. John Grimes, my brother. Y'all may know him as Tan Panda. I don't know if y'all do know him as Tan Panda. I've called him John Panda before, which is interesting.
You can find me online under that handle. So that
Mr. Tan Panda.
makes it easy.
Um, Funny guy. He has been running the bag up, as they would call it in comedy. Been traveling all around the country, doing amazing things. You have an incredible story too, man. Just about how you started. You know, you're not from LA, but here you are now, being one of the leading faces in Los Angeles, man. So I like to introduce people, but I like them to introduce themselves. So if you don't mind telling people who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Yeah, John Grimes. That is my name, and I am a comedian. My stage name is my actual name, John Grimes. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I moved out here at 25 years old to pursue comedy, and it's been about almost exactly 10 years to the date that I started comedy, and I started in LA, so it's kind of crazy. Usually comedians will start in their hometown and then move out once they like got their voice. But I just moved out here and started hit the street. So but yeah, I've been doing a little work and building my name up in the local scene. So when he says like I'm, up bigger, he means like I think he means like of the newer faces, I'm making noise on the newer face ground. Like there's all the legends and whatnot out here, but the new freshman classes, if you will, of like comics that are coming in. Uh, I'm one of the newer faces, I think, in that realm.
I mean, I feel like in all industries, it's like waves of people, right?
Hmm.
Whether it be like, musicians, rappers, especially comedians and comics, the ones that we see today, we all saw them come up together, right? Like
Yeah,
the Tracy Morgans, they all came up in that Def Jam era together,
and they all
right?
know each other. Like we're
Right.
very close. Like it's not a surprise when you see people in movies together because they've been friends for like 15 plus years already in the comedy scene. And it's like when I get a movie, I'm gonna put my dogs on. And so like that's why Eddie Murphy had so many comedians in all his movies because he's like, I know y'all funny. I'm gonna get y'all in the movie one way or the other. And so like I know if I got a movie, I would think of like five comedians off the bat. And I'm like, oh, I gotta get these guys in here. So yeah, it's a very small community, even though I mean, it's so many comedians. We know who we know, and yeah,
Yeah,
that's
everybody comes together. Now you mentioned you grew up in St. Louis, and I never knew this part of your story, but you said that you moved out here for comedy, but you didn't start comedy in your hometown.
yes.
Why how does that work?
So that's just a credit to the comedy scene, right? Like when I first decided to do comedy, I was living in Indiana. I didn't know of a single comedy club there. I moved back home to St. Louis, and there was one comedy club in the entire city, and it was about 25 miles out from where I lived. And they only did open mic comedy on one night of the week, which is a Wednesday night. And apparently, there was like 30 or 40 guys who would like want to come do it. Only 15 would be selected, and that was one Wednesday every week. You got 3 minutes, and I'm like, dude, there's only so many spots. And so I was like, I can't get better faster if I have to come once a week to try out comedy.
Mm.
And so I was like, well, I assume they must do comedy every night in LA. It has to be a place that does comedy every night in LA. And so that's when I was just like, I got to move there faster. And so I did one comedy club. I did one comedy competition. That's the only time I've been on stage ever before I moved to LA. I did a comedy competition in St. Louis for a radio station to give away like free tickets or something like that. And I was like, well, actually, it was for Death at a Funeral, the movie with Martin Lawrence, I think, and Chris Rock. Like
Mhm.
they did a promo run, and the radio station was like, "We'll give away like 2 tickets to whoever wins this comedy competition. You just have to make a joke about either families or funerals." And I did that competition. I didn't place, even though I thought my joke was pretty solid. And after I didn't win that competition, I said, "Yeah, I need to move to LA. They don't get me here. Something's wrong."
So I mean, but even then, like a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm gonna move to LA." Like, did you just immediately jump on a plane? Like, what was the process? Did you have a job lined up or what?
So that's actually interesting. Yeah, decided I was gonna move to LA in Indiana when I first saw Eddie Murphy Raw. That was in 2008. I said, moving to LA. I'm committed. And what I did,
Wait, so you saw it in 2008, but that came out in the 80s, right?
yeah, I didn't see it. So, it's funny. I didn't know stand-up comedy was a job or a career per se. I knew people did it on TV, and I thought that was just TV as a kid growing up. And then I saw like sketch comedy, and I was like, okay, sketch comedy, that's funny stuff. The Chappelle Show, like that's
Right.
hilarious. Oh
Uh-huh.
my God. But I didn't know that the people who I knew for being famous also did comedy. So when I was working at Walmart, I walked past one of my $5 DVD boxes back then, and I picked up Raw, and I was like, Raw? What is Raw? It's Eddie Murphy on the front, and he's just in the microphone. I'm like, is he telling jokes? Let me watch this. And I watched that and was like, oh my God, this you can do this. I want to do this. I want to do this right here. And that's when I decided back in 2008. And the iPhone 3G had just came out, and I was like, I'm gonna get that too, by the way. So I bought a new iPhone 3G, and when they asked me for my phone number, I was like, actually, can you give me a Los Angeles area code? They were like, why? We're in Indiana. I'm like, because I'm gonna move there one day, but I just need the area code to be LA already. So I can just always never forget that I'm supposed to move to LA. They were like, okay, how is 310? It says Inglewood. Does that work for you? And I was like, I don't know what Inglewood is. Sure, yeah, take it. Ironically, I live in Inglewood now. But
Right.
that's so funny that I think about it. Yeah, so that was 2008. I did all of that. I moved back home to St. Louis in 2009. And then my
Wait, so 2008, you were
I
where
was
were you?
I was still in Indiana. I stayed there for another year
Okay.
because initially that was a decision I made. I was deciding between going back to college or just moving to LA for comedy, and I decided I'm moving away. So moved back home to St. Louis because I said I just need enough money to buy like a flight ticket or something to move to LA. My older brother, who lived in Oklahoma City at the time, was like, "Man, fuck all that. Come to Oklahoma City. You can live with me, and you can save up your money, and then you can move to LA." And I was like, I guess. And so it was an easy sale. I was like, ain't going on to St. Louis anyway. So moved to Oklahoma City, worked there for a year. And right when I got to like the 1 year mark of my job, I wasn't at the 1 year mark yet. This is about, I don't know how time flies like this, but it was like a year and a half I stayed in Oklahoma City. And so it's 2012 going on 2013 somehow. And my brothers, I had a job that was at like the 10-month mark at. But my friend from college, who I told I'm gonna move to LA, she's like, I'm gonna move to LA too one day. We're gonna live together. I was like, cool. She calls me like, I got into USC. I'm moving there in August, and my 1 year anniversary of my job was in September. And so she's like, are you gonna be able to come in August? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So my job wouldn't let you transfer unless you were there for a year. And so I had to decide, like, oh shit, am I gonna lose a job to move to LA right now? And this is a really good paying job. And I was like, I said, I'm gonna move to LA. This is the one chance. This is a chance to go to LA. I got to just fucking do it. So I lost my job moving to LA at the time I got offered to move there because I was gonna work at the job I had for 1 year and then
Right, it was
just
on it.
transfer right
Right.
over, easy
Uh-huh. Right.
transfer.
So you
I was
have a
one of the
job when you got here.
yeah, I was one of the best like sellers at the job, and they were just like, you can't go before a year. You got to finish up your year. And they didn't hire me when I transferred, and so I had no job when I got here, and I was just like, well, I'm here now.
So like when you got here, where'd you sleep? What did you
Well, my roommate, I told her when she said, "Do you still want to move to LA?" I said, "Get a 2 bedroom apartment. I will be there on moving day."
Wow.
She's like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yes. Just get the 2 bedroom apartment. I will be there." And I had 2 bags. I flew to LA with 2 bags, two like I don't know if you can call them travel bags. I think I bought them the night before I flew out. I bought 2 Walmart bags.
Did you have any money?
I had
How did you pay rent to now you got you got a 2 bedroom apartment?
So I didn't have a job, but I had a commission job. So I feel like I might have had the first couple of months like set because I was like, oh, okay, my commission checks are still coming in from the job I had. But I had to start selling cable door to door in LA, all across LA for AT&T. I was selling Uverse, and I would go to I went to cities or parts of LA I had never been to before, never knew about, and so I was just like, "What's that? El Gardena, Inglewood, Beverly Hills." I was going all across LA selling
El
cable.
Segundo, is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, no, it was Gardena because they called the police on me. I was like, "What's up with
Right.
Gardena? Like, racist as hell." So like, I made it 2 doors in Gardena, and the police came, and I was like, "Okay, I ain't fucking with Gardena no
Wait,
more."
so you get down here, and how old are you at this time?
25.
You're 25. I'm moving to LA, about to chase my and you start doing door to door, but are you doing comedy at this time? Are you just
So I got here in September 8th. I landed on September 8th. I didn't do a first open mic set until November 24th. I went in October. I was in Long Beach when I moved to LA. So I moved to Long Beach first, downtown Long Beach, and I was looking for open mics there. And they told me about one like maybe half a mile from my house. And I went there in October to check it out. I said, we'll be back next month. And so when I came next month to watch again, I was like, I should get on stage. I'm never get on stage. I'm too freaked out. And out of nowhere, some guy behind me just goes, if you don't get up today, you're never going to get up. And I was like, talking to me? So I just signed up as soon as he said that. And that
Why
was
was
the
it
first
like
time.
a 2 month gap before you decided to like actually
You know,
start pursuing what you even moved to LA for?
you know what? I thought I was trying to get like my bearings and all that shit. Like I don't know. I don't even know what I'm gonna say. This is the first time I really get to go on stage. What am I even gonna say? Like, so I had written jokes in my phone for years, but I was like, what am I actually gonna say with this 3 or 5 minutes? And so I'm gonna go watch one time, see what it looks like. That's when I went in October. I was like, okay, they just go up there talking. Okay, cool, I can do that. And then so when I came in November, I knew what I wanted to say. I just didn't know if I was gonna do it or not. And then when that dude said that, I signed up and I got 5 minutes. Ridiculous amount of time for a new person. But it was nerve wracking. I got like one real laugh, and I was like, "Yep, that's all I needed out of 5 minutes. One real laugh. I'll be back next month." And so, yeah,
So, and this is 2013,
13.
right? So, which is super interesting because now you just moved to LA. You just moved to LA. Did people back home know you're moving to LA to pursue comedy, or what did they think you're moving to LA for?
Yes, they knew I wanted to do stand up comedy probably from about 2000, like 10 or 11 on. Like everybody was like, "Okay, you really want to do comedy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I want to do comedy."
But you were doing no type of comedian acts at home, so people didn't
nothing,
have much faith in you.
nothing humorous to the effect of I was funny on Twitter. Like I was telling jokes on Twitter and people were laughing at my tweets. And I was like, this is good because this is good writing. So that means I'm funny. Clearly, I just need to vocalize it. And so when I actually was about to move to LA, my uncle like had me come get dinner with him. And that was just a dinner conversation just to go, you should move to LA for comedy. I was like, what? Like, this is for like a goodbye dinner. He's like, no, no, no. I'm telling here to tell you, you should stay here, try to be funny in St. Louis, and then you move to LA. Hindsight probably was a good suggestion, but my brain works like this. I know that I am funny, and I know that I won't be motivated unless I'm around the best, right? And the people who do this often, I need to see that kind of framework to get committed right away. And so, like, if I can't see people around me wanting it and going after it, it won't motivate me.
Full immersion is what you were looking for.
Yeah, I wanted to really be surrounded by comedy to the point where I'm like, I could do this every day. And then when I got to LA, it made sense because I was like, y'all going to open mic today? Yeah, we go every day. I'm like, every day? Cool. And then I met Quincy Jones, comedian. And he met me at open mic. I said a funny joke. He's like, hey, yo, you funny. I was like, thanks, man. He's like, you gonna go to the next mic? And I was like, what do you mean next mic? He's like, we go to mics all night long. I'm like, you go to multiple mics in one night? He's like, yeah, all night. It's like 2 a.m. We don't ever stop. And I was like, yo, that's the kind of shit I need. Now that's when I moved to LA. Like 7 months after I moved to Long Beach, where our lease was like a 7 or 8 month lease. I moved to downtown LA, started doing the LA open mics. And that's when they were like, yeah, did we hit mics starting from like 7 all the way to like 1 a.m., 2 a.m.? I was like, oh yeah, I can do this every day. And then I just did it every day after that. I was like, I didn't know you could go do comedy so much. And that was back when it was trash too, where you had to wait like 2 hours to go up every show.
Right.
So,
It's because I'm learning a little bit about the whole industry by just working with you so much. But I want to take it back a little bit to your childhood. What was it like growing up for you in St. Louis? Were you like a funny kid? You were a sports kid? Were you like a jock? Like what kind of kid were you?
I was funny. I was smart. I would say that. I was the smart kid. Like it was 5 of us, and I'm number 4 out of 5. And like growing up, I heard a lot of, oh, John's gonna be the doctor, John's gonna be the scientist, John's gonna be the engineer type stuff, right? And so, I think that stuff is good. People like to be reminded that or encouraged. So I thought that just means that they knew I was pretty inquisitive and creative. Uh, but it's 5 of us, right? And so it's competition for attention, right? So we're all trying to like outdo each other all the time. There's 2 girls, 3 boys, and all 3 boys are in the middle. They're sandwiched in between the 3 girls. So us 3 brothers are all within 3 years of each other. And it was just me basically trying to keep up with my older brothers and outwit them, outsmart them with things they would say and do. And so it's just always competitive. And so if my brothers were being funny, I'm like, well, crap, how do I be funnier than them to get the same laughs they're getting from our other siblings? So it was always just about competition and things like that. And so we would go places, and if back then we called it joning, right? So if somebody wanted to like joan on one of us, one of my brothers, and there's 3 of us, like we're all gonna joan on you now. And like
Joning.
Yeah, I guess they
Yeah.
roasting, whatever they call it
Yeah,
regionally. It's different region
we
names
call
for
it bagging in LA.
bagging. Okay, so
Yeah.
like if you joned or bagged, then one of my brothers, it's like, it's three of us, man. We about to light your ass up. And we were just so creative with our jokes that people would be like, don't start, man. They will fuck you up. They really good at joning. You know what I'm saying? So I was the youngest, and I'm still like, I gotta catch up to the older crowd again. So I would be really, really good at this. And they would just be like, yeah, the younger brother, like he be saying some wild shit. And that's just when I started getting validation. Like, oh no, I'm actually funny. People are laughing. These older people are laughing at me. I know I'm funny.
So, did you grow up in a house with both of your parents, or what was that
Uh,
dynamic like?
Initially, right? I think my parents separated when I was like maybe first or second grade. And so when that happened, it was like a single family household for the most part. Like our dad was like in and out in between. Like we still talk to him and stuff, but he wasn't there. Now, I think the dynamic about that makes it interesting is that we ended up going to like homeless shelters like several times throughout
Mm,
childhood. And even my high school senior year, we were sleeping in the basement of a family friend's house, like all five or six of us, for my senior year of high school. So
mm.
I think what we found throughout all of that is that every time something like shitty happened like that, we were just looking for things to laugh at. And so we'd get like evicted out of our house and we're just on the sidewalk laughing because like somebody's clothes like are on the ground, like your shirt on the ground. Pick it up and put it in the drawer that's also on the sidewalk. That would make it neater. And so we would just like find stupid things to laugh at all the time, even though we were in like complete poverty. We just kept
Oh,
laughing at shit. And so I think that's kind of how like my desire to continue to be funny was about. I realized as a person, like, yeah, people can have some fucked up days, but I feel like if you can give somebody a laugh, it makes it like worth it to help somebody else's day out. And one of my favorite compliments in comedy is somebody telling me I needed that laugh. And I'm like, well, that's good. 'Cause you probably did. And I'm glad I could be a part of that.
I mean that's the interesting context about growing up. You said it's five of y'all, and went through homelessness multiple times, and even at a time in high school. Um, like how was that? Like, did your older sister usually take, I guess, the bigger burden, or like who was kind of the person that people relied on outside of your mother because your father was, kind of semi-absent, semi-present? Who kind
Uh,
of took care of y'all mostly? Was it still a mom thing or?
I would say it's our mom, and I feel like the boys kind of just were like, we got to go get it ourselves. There's nothing, nobody's coming to save us. And
Mm,
so I got my first job at 11. My other brother got his first job at like 14. Like we immediately figured out that like if you want anything, you got to go get it because somebody's gonna give it to us. And like if you want nice shoes for the next school year, you better go figure out how to get them because we're not getting them from anybody else. And
mm,
so it kind of gave us that like hustler mentality and like just believing that nobody's coming to save you. And when you really believe that, you really will go out and just do things yourself and go, I'll figure it out. So, it kind of helped with my panic lifestyle. Like I don't panic much. I'm very easygoing. Like nothing really feels dire to me when it comes to like situations. I don't freak out much. And like my girl always messes with me about that. She's like, okay, we're like the facing the wall of hell and you're like eating the cheese stick. And I'm like, I mean, I've seen worse. I've seen where I know you don't believe me, but I've seen worse. This
Um,
is not the worst thing I've seen.
and
So
and that's interesting, like, because going through those things, like, as a child and then transitioning to an adult, like, how do you think, like, what lessons do you, I mean, like, you kinda already shared some, but really, like, what lessons do you feel like you pull from those times of just having to just figure it out? And then also, two-part question, sorry. You can answer the second one first, but how did that, most kids that go through something like that generally go down a life of crime or some type of life of that's not most desirable. How did you manage to navigate?
So that immediate answer for that one is that's a credit to my mother. Uh, Very extremely religious woman to this day. Like even though we were homeless, we went to church 5 days a week.
Mm.
So we were on the buses going to church every 3 or 4 nights a week. I want to say five. Like there was a event at church Sunday, Tuesday, Friday, Thursday was choir rehearsal. Saturday might have been a picnic, a barbecue. Like we did something every week with the church, and so she kept us in church so hardcore that I don't know if that like the religion part helps you just believe that the light is at the end of the tunnel is coming for you and like you're gonna get out of this. But she just was really well grounded in that, and to see a person who I think is the original person I would credit as not being bothered by anything. We never saw her like crumble under the pressure. And then now looking back as an adult, if I had 5 kids and I was in and out of homelessness, I would probably find myself screaming at a wall one day. And like I just never saw her do that. If anything, she just quoted more Bible scriptures. And I was like,
Mm.
yo, that's crazy that you don't see this fire burning on the building. And she's like, nah, God got us, we're good. And I'm like, but looking back now, you're right. A lot of families do end up with that kind of lifestyle of looking to things to get things easier or crime or things like that. And 3 out of my 5 siblings have their degrees or working. I mean, I even got into Purdue University in my senior year of high school, and like to me, living in a basement and like not even having a place to do homework at, like that's insane. So, um, like I was a lot of credit for her giving us like the belief system in ourselves and making us believe that on the other side of all this struggle, there is like a big bright um relief, So that's the easy answer. My mom made us believe that we could be things, important people, and important things, do important things. And so, like most of my family members, they love the career they're pursuing, and
Right.
I'll say most of us honestly are. And even my brother, that like he was the only one that actually had to deal with like the juvenile system. There's
Hmm.
5 of us, and like only one of us that really had to experience that kind of life. Even he is not the worst version of what a person could be given the places we lived, and living in St. Louis, Missouri,
Right.
which is like a crazy city. So
Was he the oldest brother?
he was the middle child, right
Okay.
in the middle. So it's just one of those
And
things.
that's a whole nother syndrome I hear about
Yeah,
often, right?
right. So he
Just
just
feeling lost and not seen.
he fit right into that book perfectly. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And so um
How,
yeah, that's the answer
how's
on
the
that.
relationship with your father now?
Well, now he's deceased, but
Okay, well, I mean,
no, I'm
did
kidding.
it did it get any better,
So
as you got older?
here's the thing. It's funny. Like for the most part, if you ask any of my siblings, we'll say we have a great relationship with our dad. And that's because everything's relative, right? Like growing up in the hood, like people didn't see their dads like ever. So our dad
Right.
would still come and pull up and drop off things or give us gifts or have random conversations with us. We knew he was obsessed with cars. So if you ever really wanted to see your dad, just go to the auto shop down the street. He works there. And it's like, all right. Well, as adults or young adults, we would like pull up to his auto shop and just hang out at his auto shop, like and just talk to him. And he still did things that were like clutch. I always say, like my first day of college, he drove me to Purdue. Like when I packed my bags to go, he drove me. My little sister, when she wanted her first car, he gave her one. Like those little things that you think are like, how am I gonna do this? He just always winded up popping up for them. And I'm like, all right, dang. You want to have like moments where you think, this dude wasn't there. Like my graduation, he was there. Like all these things that I thought were like monumental moments, he ended up being
He
there
checked
for.
off all the boxes,
Yeah,
but
and
nothing more.
so it's
Yeah.
like, what am I gonna complain compared to what other people have experienced?
Right.
Dang, I got like a lot of good advice, and like it's one of those things where it's just like you get what you get. And so I never really held it against him. Looking back, I can see how, and now that I'm a father now, I can see like, oh, it's crazy. I could never imagine myself not being in the position to be around my kids now. But also times were different. Like people would have like 4 different families back then. Nobody did
Right.
anything about it. So like I don't really think anything of it now. I most of my siblings are pretty much on the same place with me. They're like, it is what it is. Like to harp on it now would be just weird.
Yeah.
So I think that for what I got out of it and how I turned out, the only thing I notice now about those kind of things is that what I work with my son on is like, oh wow, I could imagine that if I had a person this consistently in my face and ear, I would have been a whole different beast of terms
Yeah.
of like ability and like structure and like activity, right? But
Especially from a man's perspective, because
y-
you hearing it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so I didn't realize like, okay, my son is gonna be more disciplined than I ever was because I am already actively reinforcing it all the time. And like he hates it now, but later on he will say, I'm like this because my dad always made me. And it's like, that's gonna be the reason why you're so much better at something than somebody else because your dad always made you finish it. Like, and those are little nuggets my dad would say. It's like, be a man of your word, finish the job, like finish whatever you do. Don't start nothing. Why would you not finish it?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, like those kind of things where they're so
Hmm.
subtle and like you thought they were useless statements they made. or the things I end up yelling at my son about. Like, oh, finish what you said you're gonna do. If you say you're gonna do it, be a man of your word. Like, follow up what you say. If if you ain't got word, you ain't got nothing. And like those are things my dad would always say, and I'm like, oh, whatever, dude. And I find myself quoting those things more than my mom quotes, and I'm like, it does mean that just reinforces to me, like, yeah, a present dad can turn a person into like a full on beast in
No,
terms of
I would agree, man, and me also being a father, and I ask this question almost to everybody because I'm a father, so I have my experience, and I ask about their father experience and what it meant to them as them being fathers or just some parents in general. And I often hear that same thing. My dad taught me, mom usually showed me how to do things. Dad like taught me about like these integral points in life, even as an
yeah.
adult. So I want to take another transition and we go back into your comedy journey.
Mhm.
Because now I learn a little bit about your past, and now I know so much more about you than I've ever known. Right now, these jokes are gonna make a little bit more sense. Um, do you feel like there's a thin line between like laughter and I guess damn near crying? Like, is it do you feel like there's a time that you can use laughter to mask hard times or like I don't know. I've heard before that sometimes it's a mechanism for people.
I think that it was a good coping mechanism for us, like experiencing undesirable situations and finding humor in it. But at the time we were doing it, I don't think we were thinking, "Oh my god, we need a laugh." I think we were just like, "It don't cost to laugh."
Mm.
So everything else cost to us. We broke, but apparently these laughs is free. So, even when we got into our first shelter, we were like making fun of like the bunk beds they gave us. And it was like, how are we gonna sleep in these bunk? There's six of us in two bunk beds. Where are the other two people gonna sleep? We were just like cracking on the Salvation Army for not accommodating us properly. Like, they need another bunk bed in here. You know what I'm saying? Like we were just making jokes about dumb stuff, or we make jokes about other homeless people in the shelter with us. And like, ain't got no house. Nigga, we ain't got no house. But to us, it was just funny still.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
well, what
that
they gonna
is
do
funny.
about it? And like, I would think like that's just so dumb. We were like this, and I just think like tragedy and comedy are always connected in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
And I think that there are people who would love to cry, but I think they would enjoy laughing more.
Mm,
And then I think that there are people who could cry or would cry if they even from and they end up crying from laughter. And you
yeah.
always got to wonder, like, is that a cry of laughter or is that something in you that needed to get out and laughter is allowing you to do it? Like, are the same muscles that create crying also create laughter into your body? It's like, oh my God, we're finally doing this motion that we've been trying to get you to do lately, even though it comes out in laughter form. Is there a physical difference in your body laughing and
Mm.
crying?
It's the same release.
Yeah.
It's like
So
you can laugh or you can laugh at it, you can cry about it. Why not
exactly.
laugh?
And it's like your
Mm,
body, if you're really crying, your stomach tightens, you're like the muscles in your core tighten to like cry. And then when you laugh, your body core tightens up
mm,
and you laugh. And tears can come out when you cry and when you laugh. So however you want to get it out, get it out. But if you hold it in, it's bound to come out one way or the other. And if we
mm.
can make you laugh so hard that you cry, then that's still a good cry. Like I don't
I
think
like
there's a
that.
bad cry.
I like that.
And if laughter is the part that does it, I'm glad I can help, right? And making somebody cry laughing to me is probably like the apex of your job in comedy. Is like if somebody can get tears out of their face from something you created, there's a connection that they won't ever forget. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I can remember anybody that's ever made me cry laugh because there is a connection there. Like you can remember the times you've cried. You're like, I remember when I was cried, and if I remember cry laughing, like it's up there with your memory. Like it does something to your brain. It sticks in your brain. So um I do comedy because of the reason I know that there are people who could use a better day or could use a laugh. Like that's
Yeah.
my easy answer. Like I know there are people out there that would love to have a moment to laugh. And stand-up comedy is not as popular as people think. So when somebody comes to a comedy show or a comedy club, you got to think about what made them come. Like, well, how was their day going? What happened to them that they said, I got to go find
Right.
laughter?
I gotta go sign up for some giggles.
Like, so many things you could do. Like, food is a very soothing thing for a lot of people. Snacks, sweets, But when you go, I need somebody to make me laugh, and I'm gonna go pay for it. There are comedy enthusiasts, but then there's just people who you don't know how their week went, and they're like, I would pay for a laugh at this point.
Well, let me ask you this. Because as you transition from, so you were doing a lot of open mics, and even when I met you, I didn't meet you as uh maybe I just wasn't aware, but I didn't meet you as a comedian. I had to find out through now my fiance, but you wore a suit every day I seen you. So I didn't put that together. But I'm sure there was at one point in your career where now I know you made a transition from I'm not working anymore. I'm gonna go full time. What time span was that between okay, I'm doing open mics every night, and what was the process up until you being like, I'm gonna do this full time?
So year 8, I guess you could say, is the year I went quote unquote pro, right? Where it's like your full time comedy. I thought it would be later. I always told myself I'd give myself 10 years out here in LA before I trusted myself to do comedy full time. I just ended up going earlier than that. But I would say at the time period that I chose to quit, um, I had already taped my half hour. I had already did a lot of shows. I had done an hour on stage before too. And that wasn't really my goal, was to get an hour before I quit, but I wanted to know that I could be funny long enough that there are people out there who are funny for less amount of times and they're getting paid for the shit. And so I was like, all right, if I can make people laugh for 30 minutes, I can uh grow longer sets in the future. But if I got 30 good minutes right now, I should be trying to get myself places because with my connections to stages. Like, especially at the time I was at banking, but I wasn't at the job. I had a really, really good job in banking, and then I got laid off from that job, and that's when I tried to go pro the first time. That was in year 5, which
Hmm.
is a little too early, but the layout was so perfect. Like, I had a severance package. Was gonna get paid for the next 6 months. I was like, if you can't go pro after 6 months with free money, you trash. But I ended up fucking off for those 6 months. Like, I just was hanging out, going on trips and traveling, just doing young, goofy stuff. Now, if I'd have quit my job, like I did like a year and a half ago, with the same layoff and severance package, that's a different story. But that's also 3 or 4 more years later in growth. So that 2018 that I got laid off, or 2017 I got laid off, end of 2017 going into 2018. That year was so crazy because just I was okay. I knew I wanted to take a half hour because I had the free time to do it. Like, oh, I got basically 6 months to prepare for this half hour. But so many things that happened to me that year that I was just like, I don't know if I'm at the point where I should pursue this fully, because I didn't give myself a 5 year plan. I gave myself a 10 year plan for comedy. And so being in year 5, I ended up just kind of wandering on stages, trying to find stages without a real plan.
Because you don't really know how to be full time at this point, right?
I don't.
You
I
don't
just see
really.
people doing it, and I don't know I have enough comedy knowledge. And it wasn't like you had a big, quote unquote, big brother in comedy or anything
Right.
like that, right? So I'm like, nobody's really taking me in
Like,
to
what
say,
do I do all day?
yeah, like, what do you do all day? Like, I don't audition, I don't
Right.
act, or anything like that, which is something I probably could have done with that year
Right.
off, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I'm like, what else could I do to supplement the time and stay creative during the day while I pursue comedy at night? And I just really didn't have it. And so I could admit failure at the first attempt of being a full-time comic. It was
Mm.
just not the right time. And even now, when I quit back in 2021, 2022, I think it's 2022 when I quit. 2020. Yeah, 20.
About a
No,
year and a
no,
half ago.
20. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I quit in 2022. Okay, because it'll be 2 years in March coming up. So when I quit that time, I had a job. I was making okay money, but me and my girl talked about, like, if we get a house, you can quit. And so we got the house, and I was still working, and I hated the job. I would come home every day, like, I can't believe I get into work at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. and I'm already thinking about what time is 5 p.m. How far am I from 5 p.m.? Like, every day I walked in like that, to the point where my girl was like, I thought you would have quit by now. I thought you said once you got the house that you were going to quit, or I've been waiting on you to quit. And I was like, you waiting on me to quit? Man, shit, I'll tell the motherfuckers tomorrow. And so I just, like, put my 2 weeks in, because I just knew, like, I had nothing more to give to that shit. And I was just like, I can't do this job ever. I can't. I know I'm better at my comedy career than I am at this banking job. My desire wasn't there anymore. And so I was like, I gotta try. I gotta at least try. And so when I quit that time, I was like locked in.
So, like, do you think that made a huge difference in your career? You think you could have been where you are now? Because now, like I said, you are. I mean, I've known you for like since before, a little bit before maybe you retired, and and I
Oh
can
yeah.
say that I've seen a huge boost in your career. Now, maybe it was already there prior. You tell me. Maybe kind of know you as well, but since I've known you for over a year, I've seen your career literally increase. Month after month after month, and now you're on some of the biggest stages with some of the biggest names in the country. Like, how does like did you do you think that's attributed to you going full time or what?
I think it is a combination of events with me making myself available with the full time commitment. I think that's the topping, the cherry topping. Like I had jokes, right? You always have jokes, but are you getting those jokes in front of the right people? Because you're not doing the right shows. Do you have the availability to do those shows? Are you putting yourselves in opportunities where people can say, Ed dude's actually funny? Are you talking to the right people? Are you staying out late to like be part of the conversations, late night hangouts, meeting the right people? I will say that when I quit my job and I started going to the Laugh Factory every week on Tuesdays, because it's a 5 o'clock audition. And unless you live in Hollywood, you're not getting to Hollywood, 5 o'clock audition. There's no job that'll let you off unless you're like a night worker or something like that. You can't get to Hollywood at 5 p.m. And you actually got to be there before. They got to be there like 2 or 3 o'clock. So what job do you have that you can hang
Right.
out and sit on the sidewalk outside the Laugh Factory for 3 or 4 hours like I was doing? So um, that doing that, like usually, me and a couple of comedians were talking about this recently. When you do go full time to commit to comedy, something usually happens in that first 6 months to a year that makes you go, "Oh shit, I was supposed to do this." And for me, it was that right. I started doing the Laugh Factory auditions every Tuesday, and I think I want to say about 6 months in, maybe quicker. But I met a guy who was watching me perform, and he was like, "Oh my god, you're so funny, dude. We want you to like do an event for us, or something like that." And I was like, "Okay." I usually just do comedy, but I'll do your event if you want like a comedian there. And they didn't go with me, right, on what I offered them, like in terms of like that one night event, like to host or MC, whatever they wanted me to do. I was like, I'm not. They didn't go with me, and maybe it was my price. I don't know, but they ended up calling me like maybe 2 or 3 months later. I was like, man, I'm still thinking about you. I think you're so funny. We got this big building. You want to just come do comedy in it or do whatever, like a show or something? And I ended up being like, yeah, let me come check it out because I thought they were kidnappers. I don't know. I was like, what are they talking about? So I went to the venue, looked at it, and I was like, this thing is huge. Like, so what do you want to do? A show? And I was like, I want to do a festival here, like a 2 or 3 day comedy festival, tons of shows. And you know, that was my suggestion. They were like, we don't care. Whatever you want to do, let's just do it. And so I ended up doing the LA Comedy Festival last year based off of me, them seeing me do comedy for 2 minutes at a time, which is what I did. It was a 2 minute audition at the Laugh Factory. I won that day, right? So the day they came, I won set of the night. So like they had the validation, like, oh, this dude's clearly funny. And that got an opportunity that ended up being something that I had a great experience with. Like that festival went so well that, going to do it again this year and try to go bigger and better. And that festival ended up getting me even further through the door of places or people who didn't know my name. Like I had so many quote unquote like verified checks looking at my page that whole week. Like, who's this festival? Who's doing
Now I
it was
gotta say
crazy.
this because I know a little bit of parties. Before the festival, you started putting on your own shows, right?
I was hosting my own
So
show as
so I
well.
don't wanna speedboat past that because I think that was because we jumped from, you just trying to get on stage somewhere else, and you decided, you know what, I gotta make my own stage. So
Yes.
like
Stage time is hard in LA, right? You're either going to do somebody else's show or you're going to do open mics. But when you have your own room, which is like basically a comedian hosting their own event, you get to work out jokes longer, right? And so I created my own room so that I could host, interact with people, get stage time, and then network with comedians who were on my show. So that's what you get your own room for, is to get your name out there, to have a fun show and have people talk good about your show. So yeah, I think you came to one of my shows and I host. I like hosting. It's a different role to me than doing the stand up. Like it's completely different jobs. But when you host, I think you get to see more of a personality of a comic too, right?
mhm.
Because you don't really do as much prepared material because you're really balancing the
It's
room out.
transition,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's transitioning setups and you're trying to get people involved and have fun. So I hosted to show like, oh, okay, I'm able to do this too. And then like when you do your own set, that's just a different mindset. But yeah, the monthly room gave me access to more comics. And then a lot of these comics didn't know how funny I was, quote unquote, or or per se. They're like, I know I've seen you around, but I never really seen you be funny. You just a comic I've been seeing on the scene for a while. They come do my show and see me like interact or tell something on stage. They'd be like, "Oh, you're actually funny." And those kind of things would build relationships because that's all you really want to know as a comic is there somebody funny. When they see it firsthand, likely they'll be like, "Oh, well, you should come do my show." Or if somebody ever needs a comic, I'll remember that you were funny that day. You know, so I'll recommend them. So I think more than anything else, my confidence was growing because I had the ability to work out more. And then the confidence was growing from people being like, no, he's actually funny. I would recommend him to you as well. Like, and my name started spreading more that way to the point where I got better show opportunities where
Yeah, I
people
mean,
could see
because
you.
that's what I think forged me and your relationship of what we do now. With the open mic is I was able to see one of your shows you put on, and I'm like, okay, he already does this. He's very funny. It gave me an idea. So I can imagine people who've been in the industry, other comedians and other people who put on shows, why they would be interested in you as well. And I also like to add this. I think that you putting on your own shows really propelled your career as well because now you weren't just the funny comic, you were providing opportunity,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
That's always the thing. Like a lot of people want to see what you can do on your own, and you build respect from that too. Like, if I don't need your room, I don't need your room. And when comics and people or producers see that, they're like, good. And that's really a Hollywood thing. When you build on your own, they're like, well, this guy has a template. Let's just take his template with him and put it somewhere else on a larger scale, right? And so they can work with people like Issa Rae had the YouTube show already, right? And like she was doing fine with it, but then HBO was like, you know what, girl, we could put this on a larger screen for you. But she already had built her template. So when you can build something out and you don't need anybody, that's when they'll come to you because it's like you don't need us. We're just trying to amplify what you already got going. So I kept trying to reinforce like I will build something on my own and I don't need uh I'll have a good time with or without like the big names, verified checks, the network sponsors, the credits. I don't have credits to this day, so I don't think I technically have like a TV credit that people might put on their flyer. But you'll have just as much fun in my show as you would a show where there's a bunch of comics with comedian credits and TV credits and all that stuff like that. Because I know funny and like I'll bring funny people to my show, so
Right.
you'll get the same experience.
And I would say, like I said, after you doing your pandemonium show, we started doing office hours and then you doing the LA Comedy Festival. I think those things just solidified you, especially from a person who said, I'm gonna go for you only been doing comedy for full time for less than a year at this point.
Hmm.
And now you're on tour with Tony Rock, and you have relationships with some of the biggest names on television, whether it be Tahir, whether it be Ron G and Joe Fox and all these people that you have now forged relationships with. I think, like I said, that is. Did you ever look back at that and be like, man, like each step was because you're not even from here. On top of that, like,
Yeah, no, it's funny only hearing it back right now because you're so much in this zone of I gotta do this stuff that you don't really have a moment to go, oh, I'm doing this stuff. And like I think seeing other people's reaction to it is the only time I actually go, huh, I guess, yeah, I'm doing this, huh? Like, and even then, it's hard to stay in that moment because it's so much like it could be gone in a second.
so
Get to it, brother.
does it blow your mind? Like right now, like you've been on tour with Tony Rock. Y'all been going all over the damn country at this point. It's did it ever dawn on you like where you were even like a year, 2 years ago, where you were sitting in that office and now literally you are doing full shows in different states every weekend with one of the biggest names in comedy? I mean, nothing.
it, it it- it's pretty surreal, especially coming from where I came from. Like when I did quit my job, it was a little bit of chaos. Like, are you
Because
sure?
you got 2 kids, bro.
I
Like you
got
quit
two
and
kids.
you're gonna do something that you for free that you're not gonna get paid to do first.
Yeah, no, it's very much it's a very ridiculous risk, and I get why people won't do it that way because it does take a lot of. You got to really blindly believe in what you're about to do. Like you got to believe that's about to work out. Like, and it doesn't usually work out immediately, which is the chaos that you walk into. And there were times in that first year where I was like, ugh, ooh, this is stupid. I need to go back to somebody's bank And either I would say, no, I'm not going to do it. Or sometimes my girl would just go, no, you're not going back to any office. That's not why you quit, to go back to somebody's office, like to get like really good money really fast. Like I was like, I'm going to go back to somebody's bank or insurance company or something like that. She's like, no. I mean, if you want to do some kind of odd job shit, maybe, but like, don't go back. If you just feel like there's no parachute, what will you do? A safety blanket, what would you actually do? And I was like, well, that's a fair question. And so I found myself getting more aggressive with like my approach to the sets I was doing. I was like, nah, I need to, if I'm gonna go out in LA now, I need everybody to see me in LA to realize like I'm not fucking around. Like I need them to know top two sets of the night. Like if I'm not one of the two funniest people you see on every show now, what am I doing all this free time? Like, how am I not one of the funniest people on the
Right.
lineup?
I got nothing but
I got
time
nothing
now.
but time to be funny. I should be one of the two funniest people on every show, to the point that after every show, somebody goes, yo, please come do my comedy show. Yo, what's your Instagram? I need to follow your comedy. Like, if I'm not doing that, then I fail. And that to me, that's a clear failure. Like that's my objective every time. Every time I go on any show is like, I need to be top two. I in my head is I need to be one, but I'm like, I'll give leeway.
Right. Because
But
it's niggas is
yeah,
nice.
it's kind of niggas is nice. So I'm like, I'm in year 8, 9. Like I'm like, there's people who like been doing this, they got that shit down. And I'm like, and because I am so sporadic sometimes with my set options, I'm like, you know what? There's always a little bit of cushion for pushing. So I'm like, all right, top 2 sets, that is a fair goal to have, no matter who's on the lineup. If you can do that consistently for a
You'll be
year, there's
fine.
no way that nobody's gonna not come back and go, nah, this dude needs, y'all need to meet this dude. He is funny.
Well, let me ask you this. Within the last 8, 9 years, maybe within the last 2 that you decided that you were going to leave your job full time, leave your security, you ever wanted to like give up, or been time you feel like, man, I think I'm gonna just, I mean, I guess you just mentioned it, but
The
yeah,
self
just like, I can't do this. It's not working out.
self-doubt is a natural feeling, right? Especially when things aren't working out. Like there's been some months where I'm like, I got nothing booked. Like I might have a local show, but I got nothing booked. I'm not traveling, I'm not doing anything. Like it looks weird on paper for you to be like, what are you doing this month? You don't work. So what are you doing in comedy? And it's like, yeah, I'm not doing nothing in comedy either, really. So those times you're like that, but now I'm like, that's on me. If I can't see where I'm gonna be at next month or the next 3 months, and I'm not working on filling those dates right now, that is on me. There is nobody else more responsible for filling those dates than me. I don't have an agent, I don't have a manager. Everything you see me do is because I got it myself. I went out and sought out that opportunity and then booked it. If I'm out of town at a comedy club, I booked that comedy club. If I'm out of town at a theater, I booked that theater. There's nobody saying, please come book our client and we'll give you a
And you
bigger
paying a
comic
lot of times,
later.
you paying for your own
I
flights, your
invest
own
everything. I invest in
hotel.
shows. I pay for rentals of these venues, hoping that I'll sell back the money I put into the venue that night. Like, there's so much risk involved with every place I go to on my own that it is so. When you say what I think about the things I do with Tony, I'm like, yo, to go to a place where these are technically, or not technically, they just are not my crowds, right? They're not my audience. They didn't pay to see me, but I can walk out into a room full of people that want to laugh. All it does to me is to make, oh my gosh, when this is for me, you know how much of a weight off my shoulders that will feel to know, like, oh, the room's full and I booked this full room tonight. Awesome. I'm really excited to tell
I
jokes
mean,
now.
but does
Like
that not
I
happen
can't
then when you go to Indy though? Like,
Indy, St. Louis, I feel it. I feel it in those towns because those are like my hubs, right? And I love going back there to perform. And like when I go to a city and I get love now, I'm like, this is dope. And but it's different because it's like these rooms are smaller when I go back to my hometown. It's like it's a smaller room. When you go to like a room that Tony Rock does, like I remember when I was in Columbus, Ohio, I think that thing sat like 450 people, right? And so I'm walking in there, I do my set and I have fun. And I'm doing 30 minutes, by the way, right? So I'm doing 30-minute sets and I come off stage and the club's rocking. He comes out, everybody's losing their mind, it's clapping. And like maybe 10 minutes into the set, I like took a sip of my beer and I'm standing on the wall, like in the room. And I just look around. I look up, there's a balcony full of people. There's 250 people on the bottom floor. And I'm just like looking back at the stage and I go, I probably was performing in front of like 7 people a couple days ago, 2 people a couple days ago. And now I'm sitting in front of 450 people. And I'm like, this is what you wanted, right? This is exactly what you wanted. And somehow you're actually facing it right now. You need to take this in for a second and go, yo, I worked towards this.
Yeah.
I worked towards this all these years of nobody in the room while I tell jokes, all these years of two people in the room while I tell jokes, and believing that one day I'm doing this act out alone in this room because one day there's going to be 300 people laughing at it. So I do all this stuff while nobody's watching to do it for when everybody's watching.
Mm.
So there's no lucky people out there like that. If they're funny and they're performing well in front of a large crowd, they also will perform well in front of a small crowd. Like there's just too much time and effort put into sets to think that somebody's out there just cakewalking. There's no cakewalking. There might be people that you think aren't funny to you, but there is somebody out there that found them funny already, and that's why they're in the position they're in. So I have a different respect for anybody that tours and performs across the country because it's just so hard to sell tickets, first of all. Second of all, to entertain people for longer than 10 minutes,
Oh man, you
also
gotta be
hard.
that's gotta be the most difficult thing. And I've seen other comics that you've worked with, and I see the amount of time that's put in. And me and you, we don't really only work together, every Monday night, and we've done some shows before. But
Yeah.
I see the work, and I tell you all the time, like, I can do it. Like y'all, man, like y'all working hard. Y'all like NFL players out here. Like the amount of work y'all put in.
It's very similar in that aspect, right? Because for the performance time, right? NBA game is 48 actual minutes. NFL is 1 hour of actual play time. But they have to do so much crap outside of that play time to get ready for the game.
Right.
And comedians are really the same way in the sense it's not physical strain, but it's mental strain, emotional strain. We have to channel all these emotions to come out perfectly as art, basically, for you to go, I connected with this. Because if they don't connect, then you have nothing, right? So there's a lot of things that go into it. I know, like I tell people all the time, I'm trying to, if I get to the job lifestyle I want, my work day is 1 hour. It's a joke. That's also a joke. My work day is not 1 hour. I spend all day thinking about comedy. All day. There's not a moment I'm not looking at something and going, how can I make that funny? Like it's just that's what I'm hunting all day long. And then it's showtime and it's like, all right, go with this. This is what we're gonna have. Like it's an all day
No,
task
I'm
and
already
it's
knowing
fun.
it consumes you, and y'all are up every night, all night. I mean, yeah, like I said, I take my hat off to you comics that are really putting out extra work, that hard work, and I can see the difference too of somebody like you and somebody who's just trying to figure it out.
Mhm.
And it's really like the only difference between you, I think, and the person who's trying to figure it out is that you spend more time figuring it out, and they don't. I think that I can really, you just spend more time figuring it out, and
Mhm.
they don't spend enough time figuring it out. And I can say that's from what I've seen, you know.
It's an experience thing, right? And I think that, or a guidance thing, like younger comics, and I don't mean age, I mean like earlier in their experiences with comedy, they're just trying to think of funny things, and like that's your initial thing is you go, what's funny, and like as you just heard me say, how can I make this funny? That's two different questions, right? Because you can have a like what's funny is just like all right, titties, that's funny, right?
That's
And it's
hilarious.
like okay, that's nothing there, but it's like I got pulled over, how can I make this funny? It's my
Mm.
experience because it's about to be unique to me. That's what I mean when I say that. How can I make something funny that is unique to me? Right. And it's like, okay, where is the humor? How can I create like now I'm building out a story versus a person going, I'll think of a funny thing. Where can you go with the funny thing you thought of? Clocks, grandfather clocks are funny, right? They just tall and they're supposed to be on time. And
Right.
it's like, okay, well, what's the
Whatever.
rest of the joke? Nothing. I just thought grandfather clocks were funny that people still have. Like, no, dog. But if I say I experienced this the other day, people can go, okay, I've experienced this before. Continue, right? Like
Yeah.
I've already set you up for what we're about to
Right.
go through. And so that is the biggest difference is where is your voice in whatever you're talking about? Where is your personality in whatever you're talking about? And so I think the younger comics don't realize that yet is that I'm creating from experience and like my mind attached to an event that everybody can relate to versus attaching people to an event that you haven't personalized.
And that kind of leads me to my final question, man. About what is some advice that you would give a young comic out there? Because I run into a lot of them just from what I do, and operating the studio. I get a lot of personalities. A lot of people come in, and a lot of people are just interested in the entertainment field, whether it be acting, comedians. It's all entertainment at this point. It's a different grind when you're a comic, but at the end of the day, I think it's all entertainment. What advice would you give someone trying to find success, or the success that you found so far in this industry?
Well, one, do it as much as possible. Like get on stage as much as possible. Keep hearing your voice. Keep studying people that you respect. Uh, and like look at their success and look at what worked for them early on in their career too. Always like don't watch the current version of a comedian you love because that's mastery.
Yeah.
Watch what got them to mastery. Watch their early sets. Look at them. Sometimes you'll find a set of a comedian you love, and the earlier version of that joke is not as funny as it is now. And you're like, damn, he fixed that joke. That means he's been telling the joke for 10 years. Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. Yeah. Stop making new jokes. Start making jokes more you. The joke doesn't matter what time you created it. Is it still funny? People still laugh at it. Is it creative? Is it unique to you? Is it telling your story? What networks buy your story from that joke? Are you really letting people walk away going, I got a better understanding of that person based off the set I heard him tell or her tell? If that's not the takeaway from people when they watch you, then you're not telling your true comedy story and your true voice. So I would say get on stage, make your jokes sound more like you, and then study success.
All right. Well, last question for real. Last, give it to me. Mount Rushmore of comics. Your Mount Rushmore. Give it to me.
I'd go Patrice O'Neal, Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr, and Richard Pryor.
All right. I'm not mad at any of those. I
For
can't.
now.
You can't argue that, man. You can't argue that.
That's for now.
Well, Brother Grimesman, I appreciate you spending time with me this evening. I appreciate you sharing your story and being vulnerable, man. It means a lot. I think that I ask questions a little bit about where you come from because I think it makes people connect. I know I've watched entertainers, rappers, and I may have hated the rapper until I learned about their story, and then I started to like them a lot more. So
that's real. Like,
it happens.
and there's nothing I wouldn't say in an interview that I wouldn't say on stage, right? Like, because to me, this is something I would anything I talk about today, I would talk about on stage because I do think that some of those things are unique to people, and they would go, "Dang, wait, you experienced that too? Tell more about it." And like, I will find the humor in it for you. There's nothing I wouldn't say that I don't think that if we were still talking about this, even off the camera, I'll be cracking jokes about the shit. So humor is everywhere, and my job is to keep finding it. But some of this truth is also funny too. And that's like one of my favorite quotes, that the jokes are funny, but the truth is hilarious because, yeah, it is. So
yeah. Well, appreciate you again, ladies and gentlemen. You have been just reintroduced to Mr. John Grimes.
Thank you.